Welcome everyone to the Get Online London Show and Tell. I'm Genta from LOTI. Please note that we'll be recording this session to share publicly on our website and social media channels. So please bear that in mind. Please can I kindly ask that you remain muted if you are not speaking, and that would be greatly appreciated. So first of all, just to say it's so very nice to see so many of you on the call today. We'd like to thank you for your time, for making the time today. We absolutely would love to hear to see who we have in the room, but we don't have the time. So please can I ask you to introduce yourself and the organization you represent in the chat. In terms of format for today, apologies. Right. So in terms of format for today, you'll hear some updates from myself, my colleagues from Good Things Foundation, Barnet's Boost program and Health Place, who are our partners in this program. You will then kind of have the opportunity to ask questions, and you'll have the opportunity to kind of feedback and express your views on what you hear today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please do put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them straight away. If not, we'll return to those at the very end. So this is the team presenting today, and a very quick reminder for those of you joining us for the very first time. So Get Online London is the London Digital Inclusion Service, and it supports the Mayor of London ambition to provide digital skills, data and online connectivity to all Londoners by 2025. In terms of what the programme does, again, apologies, I'm having a delay. So the Get Online London service offers, as I said, digital skills via the Learn My Way platform. It offers refurbished devices via the device bank and mobile data via the data bank to any Londoner who needs them. All those things are distributed and managed by a vast network of VCS and community organisations in London. What's kind of special about this service is that it's London-wide, it's a coordinated approach at London scale, but not only but it works at hyper-local level, you know, deep in communities, because we want Londoners who don't otherwise engage with council services to be able to access this kind of support. And then again, this is just a quick reminder that, you know, we heard a lot about digital exclusion during the pandemic, but, you know, given the current economic crisis we're all experiencing, you know, with the cost of living crisis and things like that, it's, you know, even more important to work on this kind of work now, and we are committed to continuing our efforts on this front. I think for now, I will hand over to my colleague Tash from Good Things Foundation.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant, thank you. My name is Tash Punter and I'm the Partnerships and Fundraising Manager at the Good Things Foundation. At the moment I am looking after the device bank, so I'm here to talk to you a bit about that today. If you'd like to go to the next slide please, Genta. Okay, so for the device bank, to make it a success, we've had to build an offer that makes it as easy as possible for organisations to donate and to get involved. So by doing that, we've devised a device pack. So anybody that gets in contact with us in the initial discussions will have a device pack and usually a discovery call that contains all the information that you will need about the device bank, tells you how it works, tells you about the circular economy, tells you about the people that you could help and how you could help them. It talks about recycling, and it talks about our third party economy who we partner with to help us make it a success. With the device bank, we offer you a reassurance through agreements and certification. So we have an agreement in place that's a three-way agreement between Good Things Foundation, Reconomy and you as an organisation. That gives you some assurance in terms of what happens to the devices, that they are wiped of any data, that they are cleaned, that they are refurbished. All devices are tracked and they get a certification at the end with a report in terms of what has happened to that device. So really, we want to make the device bank sustainable. We don't just, I mean, we would love one-off donations, but we really we're looking for regular donations. So when you have like regular IT refreshes, to do with your equipment, to do with your mobile phones, anything that you might be thinking about in the future, you know, further on down the line in terms of like changing your equipment. So really, to make it sustainable and the longevity of the device bank, we're looking for those regular donations to come in. The device bank is all about focusing on, oh, sorry, can you just go back one? Sorry. Oh, thank you. So we're really focusing on the environmental and social impact. So as I'll discuss in the next slide, in terms of what happens to devices that we can't use, how can they be used to still help the device bank in terms of recycling. We're looking really to change people's behaviours in terms of what they're doing with their old IT equipment, reducing landfill. That's really, really where we want to get to. And we really want to give you, the device bank is a great opportunity for you, for organisations to support digitally excluded Londoners by recycling those devices and putting them back out there for people to actually benefit and get online. Next slide, please. So on doing the last few months, what we have found is that we have some challenges with the device bank. We found that it takes time. So from that initial discussion which we've had with businesses and organisations where people want to donate, you know, we have to make sure that we get to the right key decision makers. We have to make sure that the agreement is okay between all parties and that it's signed. So it can actually take a while from the actual initial point of contact to the donation, but that's fine. The end point is that we want to get to the donation. The reuse rate we found is about 50% at the moment. It does depend on the type of donation that we get as well. Sometimes if we get mobile phones, we might not be able to get into all of them. Some of them might be broken, but that doesn't mean to say that they still can't be used. Some parts we can use for recycling, stripping down. The main thing is that they do not go into landfill. Another challenge is the age of the devices. Sometimes they're quite old. Sometimes they're beyond economical repair. Sometimes they are they're out of security and software updates. And planned obsolescence is a big thing, really, that we all should be looking at, because it's once, if you get a device that's over a certain amount of time and it's perfectly good enough to use, sometimes the barrier there is that it can't get any software updates. So that's a big barrier to us. So really, and also understanding some of the reasons why some organisations don't want to or unable to donate. So that's getting to the nitty gritty, and that's what we're finding as we're going on. So some organisations, they don't own their own IT equipment, so then therefore they are supplied by another company. Some people have their own people, that some local organisations that they donate to. There's a whole raft of reasons which we're gathering, which is helping us to make the device bank better. Next slide, please, Genta. So really, this is just an overview of how the device bank works, and this is actually in the device bank pack, which I spoke about earlier. So once an organisation donate the devices, so they come in, and it goes down two routes. So the first one, so we'll go to the second one first of all, where the devices are unusable, but they do get recycled for money. They can be sold. That money is then generated and it's invested into digital inclusion by Good Things Foundation. If you go to the first one, where the device is wiped by Economy and it's certified, it's paired with data from the data bank, which my colleague Gabby will talk to you a bit further on down the line in the presentation, and then it's gifted to the local community organisation and charities to actually pass on to the beneficiaries. And I think it's really good that it is paired with the data, because you're not just giving somebody a device, you're giving somebody a device with the means to get online, so they can, you know, hit the ground running and they can start to look for jobs and actually be more socially included. Do you want to go on to the next slide?
To join this.
So far, we've distributed 783 devices, which I think is great, and we've done that across 21 London boroughs. We do have commitment for regular donation of devices in thousands imminently, and that's quite a big organisation that has given us some phones, and then there's some laptops that are coming and to do with their IT refresh that they've got over the next couple of years. So that's a really good regular donation, and that references back to what I was talking about before in terms of making the device bank more sustainable. We're speaking to a whole range of different organisations in London that want to help to make Get Online London a success. As you can see there, they're businesses, London boroughs, universities and utility companies, as well as other small independent companies that have got in contact with us. And that's partly to do with some of the, the Mayor of London letter that we had that went out to everybody, and some of the advertising that Get Online London are doing. So this slide just talks about the benefits of receiving a device, and there's some things on here that that you wouldn't think that would really change somebody's life. And I've recently worked for Good Things on a different project for the UK Community Renewal Fund, and I had the real privilege of working really closely with some of the centres that told me about some of the things that they could do, which made their lives so much better by receiving a gifted device. People can develop their digital skills, they can build a CV. Being able to build a CV online and then being able to look and search for work is quite a powerful thing for some people, because it's quite hard to do that when you just have a mobile phone, for instance, and it's quite a small screen. And we found that a lot of people were in 0-hour contract jobs, jobs that they didn't necessarily want to be in, but they didn't know how to build a CV, they didn't have essential digital skills, and they couldn't get online to look for a job. So having a device paired with data massively helps those people. Take it to the other end of the spectrum, you've got people that would like to interact with their children more, so they want to help them with their homework, they want to access the school portals, they want to be able to pay their children's dinner money. Also there's things on here like stopping social exclusion, isolation, where you can connect with your friends and family on Skype or Zoom, just being connected. If you are, a lot of people are still shielding, because they're vulnerable. So being able to connect with people around the world and friends, access health and medical services by using a device. I think it's really, really fabulous. And there's just a couple of quotes on there that you could have a read afterwards. So let's go into the next slide, please. So really, I guess I'm putting this out there really to you in terms of how you can help us to grow the device bank. So there's some ideas on here that you might just want to take away and think about. So do you have an IT refresh coming up? Have you got a big, we have a big surplus of IT devices that you think that we could use, that we could either recycle or refurbish and donate to people? We take all sorts of devices, we take peripherals as well, switches, phones, tablets, laptops, anything that you think that you don't think that we could use. Get in contact with me or with us, Good Things, and we can actually have that initial call with you, and we can talk about what you think is what we could
Lily.
What we do is we can actually strip down and recycle as well, and that all goes to reducing landfill. So do you have borough to borough communication? Could you be an advocate for us? So if you have, and this applies to anybody else that works in the NHS or anybody that has a network where you have peers that do the same thing as you do. Do you have other companies that you could say, oh, have you heard about this? And what about your ESG and sustainability? So environmental, social and governance, that stands for sustainability. Do you have those targets? Do you have policies? Do you have a strategy for it? Does this fit in with that? Do you think it's something that you could help us with? And you've seen some of the stories that I've talked about, and you could be a real part of that in terms of helping Londoners. The citizens of London really, really benefit from that. So the next slide, please. So that's all I've got to say about the device bank, but there will be some details on how you can contact me or the team a bit later on in the presentation. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Gabby.
Thanks, Tash. Morning, everyone. I'm Gabby Woodhams, and I'm Head of Network Delivery and Customer Support at Good Things Foundation. One of the areas that I'm responsible for is network growth. So my colleagues Alison and Katie are on the call with me today, and we've been working over the past 6 months or so to really build the network across London. So this slide is on the screen again, just as a reminder to show that there's 3 ways that we're fixing the digital divide across London, by supporting our network of digital inclusion hubs, via the data bank and via the device bank. So this morning I'm going to give you an update on progress so far, the membership benefits of being a member of Get Online London and how you can get involved. I appreciate there's a different audience on this call this morning, so there are ways that each and every one of you can get involved in the Get On London initiative. So I'm really pleased to say that since July, 143 organisations across London have joined the data bank. So that means there's 143 different places across London where Londoners can go to get access to free mobile connectivity. And later in the slide deck, I'll talk to you about how you can access that. It's really positive to see that there's at least 1 data bank in 28 of the London boroughs. So we're nearly there, getting coverage across London, and we will continue to grow that. So far, we've got 28 libraries across London signed up to the data bank, and we've been working with the London Libraries Network to support them through the process. And also on that point, it's important to note that other services and departments within councils can actually sign up to access the data bank as well. As Tash mentioned, we've distributed 783 devices across London, and hopefully there'll be more coming soon. And it goes without saying that we want more organisations across London to benefit. If you can move on to the next slide, please, Genta. So the membership offer to join is completely free to join Get Online London. If you're already a member of the Digital Inclusion Network, you're already in, and then you can access the benefits that we've got. So I'm just going to talk through each of the membership benefits, but it's completely free to join. Once you are in the network, you can apply to access the data bank and the device bank. So the data bank is an amazing initiative. We're working with 3 telcos, Virgin Media O2, Vodafone and 3, and they've generously donated enough data to support 500,000 people by the end of this year. So there's definitely more than enough for each organisation on the call to sign up and access that free data. The model works by us giving data out to organisations in our network, and then those organisations distributing that to people that they're working with. Data recipients do need to be 18 years old plus and not have any access to internet either at home or away from home, and be from a low income household, but I'm sure that that's a familiar target audience that you're working with. The application process to join the data bank is always open, and there's links in this slide deck for you to be able to get more information. We do have a monthly Q&A session that you'd be very welcome to come along to learn more. And whenever the time is right for you to apply, you can land on the website and submit your application, and you will be onboarded as part of a monthly process. Tash has touched on the device bank already, but if you are in the network and we have opportunities to apply for devices, you again will need to apply, and we'll promote those through our newsletter. Again, similar target audience, 18 plus, with no access to internet or a device from a low income household. So they're kind of the 2 big draws to our membership offer. We do have a network training plan. This is for organisations within our network, and our training plan has been co-designed and is co-delivered by a group of network ambassadors. So it's really grounded in the expertise and experience that you need to be able to embed good models of digital inclusion in your provision. You can see some of the topics there, but we've also got digital skills for older people, or for ESOL speakers, or for people with disabilities. And there's also a session around fundraising surgeries and writing better bids to help with the sustainability of your organisation. Again, completely free of charge, and they are all run online. Another membership benefit is having access to Learn My Way. So if you're not familiar with Learn My Way, that's our digital skills platform. It's currently got 30 courses on there for complete beginners, from touchscreen keyboard mouse through to how to send an email online, staying safe online, banking online, communicating. So it's a really great platform for people with no internet skills to start. It builds their skills, and more importantly, it builds their confidence. The last part of the membership offer that I'd like to mention today is that you would have access to our grant funding opportunities. So currently our core grant model is a digital inclusion capability grant. it's a small investment of £4,000 in you as an organisation to continue to be able to deliver digital skills provision into the future. So it's not a delivery grant, it's an investment in your organisation. And the idea behind that is if you need to buy some devices so that you can set up a new outreach session, or maybe some specialist equipment for a target audience, or maybe you want to pay for some staff training or build a digital champions programme. Whatever it is that you need with that investment, you can bid for. Those funding opportunities will open twice a year. And again, if you're in the network, you will be able to apply for those. Next slide, please, Genta. So there's lots of different ways you can get in touch with us. Our contact details are on there. So if it's relevant and you directly support beneficiaries, we'd really love for you to join the London Digital Inclusion Network, and the link is there. As I said, if you're already a member of our network, please make sure that you're taking us up on the benefits of being in the network. And if you're in a position to be able to donate devices to us, so that we can supply the device bank, sorry, the link is there as well. So there's mine and Tasha's email address on there. There's the hello email address and the partnerships one. But what I would say is I would urge you all to get in touch with us after this session this morning, so that we can continue to work together to fix the digital divide across London. So I'm very pleased to say that we're joined on the call this morning by Faye from BOOST Barnet, and Faye is going to talk to us now about how she is finding being a member of Get Online London and the different work that they are doing across Barnet. Over to you, Faye.
Thanks very much, Gabby. Morning, everyone. So I'm Faye Morris. I work for BOOST, which is a Barnet Council project. Genta, if you could just move on to the next slide, please. Thanks. I'm not sure whether that's my end or Genta's end that's frozen.
Yeah, Faye, I think it does seem to be frozen, I'm afraid.
Is that for everyone? So shall I just carry on until
Yes,
those
please.
slides come up? That's fine. So as I mentioned there, I work for BOOST, which is a Barnet Council project. We have a one-stop shop which residents visit for employment, benefits advice, skills, well-being and other sorts of support. So we offer that support to all of our Barnet residents. My role as the Digital Inclusion Coordinator, so I set up the Barnet Get Online Network, which is a forum which brings together community organisations to discuss everything which is digital inclusion related. So far we have around 100 members since we established back in September of 2021. So I lead on things like the digital skills community workshops. So I encourage organisations to set up their own digital inclusion offering to support those residents who are digitally excluded, who are trying to look for work, trying to access skills, etc. I also lead on the Barnet digital inclusion campaigns. So every quarter we have an awareness campaign across the borough where we talk about and celebrate all our digital inclusion activity amongst all of the organisations. It's also an opportunity for us to get other organisations on board with digital inclusion activity, as well as signing up to things like the National Data Bank, and to raise that awareness as well. More recently, we've worked with LOTI on a digital triage pilot, which was a resident questionnaire to try to understand digital exclusion across the borough. So we led that pilot across 4 areas of Barnet, so across our council customer services areas, at BOOST, across our community housing projects as well, and that we're actually just waiting for the evaluations to come back. But interestingly, looking at the data that we could see, a lot of those residents were digitally excluded because of the lack of data So not necessarily the skills, but they found it difficult to access data for various. So the SIM cards, so we put in a successful application to the National Data Bank, and I'm pleased to say that's gone really well. We designed an eligibility process which is based on those individual needs of the residents. Now, because at BOOST we actually work with residents on a day-to-day basis who are, first of all, on low incomes, they have very little, no access to the internet when they're at home or indeed away from home, or they find it difficult to afford their monthly contracts or top-ups. So it's pretty seamless in terms of the ways in which we're able to access those residents who are most in need. In terms of channels, so we've created channels where we can measure the impact of the SIM card allocation. So as I said, we can identify those residents who are in receipt of things like housing benefits, PIP, household support fund, care leavers. So we have access to that data so that we can actually target those residents with this offer of the free of charge SIM cards. Already we're actually seeing the impact for those residents that we served since we were allocated the SIM cards in early January. We plan to gather resident case studies in March, which coincidentally will coincide with our first quarterly awareness week campaign. So we hopefully will have some really nice stories to tell from those residents around how they've used that data, how it's helped them to connect with family, friends, access employment, and so forth. So that will be something really nice to talk about. So I know that I'm kind of limited for time, so I'll just move on to my final slide, which is just a couple of links to the Barnet Digital Hub. That's where you'll find all the information about what we're doing in Barnet. So this is a very small piece of work that we're actually delivering in the digital inclusion space. So if you want to visit our hub, there's the link, and I've also included a link to the BOOST Barnet pages if you want to understand a little bit more about what we do at BOOST. And there's our hashtag. So yeah, if you hashtag us across social media, you'll see some nice stories about what we've done in the past. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Faye, for the presentation. And I just want to check with everyone. Can you see the okay, so I think the Microsoft Teams global issues, technical issues are catching up with us. Hopefully not until the end, but just to say thanks again, Faye. It's been great to work with you, and thanks for sharing, you know, the great work you're doing in Barnet. Here are all the links that Faye mentioned. So now I think before handing over to Matthew Pike from Health Place, I just wanted to say a very quick note that alongside building the Get Online London service, which my colleagues Gabby and Tash have spoken about, and Faye as well, we've been also looking at creating a directory, a London directory of digital inclusion support. And we've been working with Health Place, our delivery partner, on this, but just want to kind of really mention and say thank you very much to NHS as well. It's been a real pleasure to work with them, and they've been a great support actually in helping us build this directory together with Health Place. So now I think I'll hand over to Matthew without further ado.
Thanks, Kendra, and hello everybody. Talking of digital exclusion, I was excluded by Teams on my laptop this morning, so I'm here on my mobile, so I do hope that works. And Kendra, if you could push the slides forward in a minute, that would be great. Thank you. So yes, I'm Matthew Pike. I'm Chief Executive of Health Place. Very briefly, by way of context, Health Place is a next generation support directory that's intended to offer Londoners access to all the support they need to take control of their lives. It already includes hundreds of thousands of support opportunities, be they national support such as apps or videos or books or products, as well as local face-to-face group services and activities. The core service is free for London. It's new technology that looks to automatically update the support listings on the system. It's an open platform. It can integrate with any local digital system. We're using it with the NHS to run large-scale population campaigns, but crucially, we're also putting Health Place in the hands of volunteers who can work one-to-one with people most at risk of low, poor health inequality. That's a model we call community connectors. Now, as Gendra alluded, we are a spinner from the NHS and therefore acutely aware of risks around digital exclusion and health inequality. So really delighted to be working, with LOTI, fabulous to work with Good Things Foundation, and a particular shout out to Kensington and Chelsea, Tim and Rafi, and a team of about 45 people with whom we've been co-producing what I'll tell you about just really briefly, and then let's open it up for Q&A. Yeah. Our role in this project, as Genta was just saying, is really about maximising people's awareness of and access to, all of this fantastic support. And to that end, I've got really two simple calls to action that I want to cover in just a couple of minutes. The first and most important of those is working with all of you, hopefully on this call, to ensure we've got the most comprehensive map possible of all the existing support that exists across London is available to Londoners. And secondly, as a follow-up to this meeting, we'd love your feedback on a prototype online quiz, a support finder as we call it, which is a tool for people to find support that's appropriate for them. But look, above all, we need your help to create that really comprehensive directory of support. And to that end, of course, we've already got lots of great information from Good Things Foundation, Age UK, Digital Unite, AbilityNet, information on social tariffs and more. But what we're especially keen to do is to work with local councils, voluntary service councils and others to add to that map. So to that end, there should be a little link there you can see at the top. I gather we're going to share these slides, but if you click on that link, you can register your local area. And then we'll follow up with you. Ideally, there's an email there, my personal email. We'd love to speak with you. We'll support you in whatever way works for you to get local support information added. We've already been doing this quite successfully in North West London with Kensington, Chelsea, Westminster, Brent, and others. So we're sort of polishing the way of doing this so it's least possible burden on yourselves. So if you fill in the link, we'll be in touch and we'll have a co-design kickoff session with you. Secondly, and again quite briefly, we've been co-designing a simple online tool. We call it a support finder. Essentially, it allows a supporter of an individual or a family member or whatever to answer 3 brief questions and then view the most relevant local support, both through a map view as well as a simple list view, as well as, of course, national support where appropriate. Again, if you just flick to the final slide, I don't know if you could read that. I can't on my mobile, quite honestly, but this is just a little sneak preview of our support finder. It is designed to be super simple. Yeah. 3 questions and then appropriate support. So with this, we'll be sending you a link to this tool. It is in beta, it is a prototype system, but we'd ask you not to share it more widely because we're still working on it. Yeah, but we'll send you a link in due course and we'll send you a simple feedback form so we can get any thoughts and ideas you've got about how we can make it, really, really good. So look, to finish, this is just the start of the process. Get that map of all the support, create a really simple way for people to access the support. But then what we want to do with you in particular is recruit, I was about to say an army of volunteers, I'm not sure that's the right metaphor, but networks of volunteers in each local area. Now, they may be digital champions, they may already be trained up for this role, but they may simply be people in councils or emergency services or in the NHS who are able to have that simple conversation with somebody, you know, to support them and activate and signpost them so that they get, you know, this amazing support we were hearing about from LOTI and Faye and Barnet and elsewhere. So watch this space, but yeah, we'd love your involvement in particular getting that map of all the support out there across London. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for sharing those thoughts, and we'll share all the contact emails again alongside the presentation. But in terms of what's coming up next, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that we are committed to developing the Get Online London service further. We're only just started. We've been going now for about 9 months. We are absolutely committed to working with Good Things and yourselves as well to make this a success. You know, we'll continue to engage with potential donor organisations and build the network of VCS organisations, because we recognise without you on the front line, we are not able to help London digitally excluded Londoners. What we will share in the next show and tell as well is kind of impact, our thoughts on impact. We have been gathering data, we have been putting together frameworks for capturing both qualitative and quantitative information on access on the service, so we can share more around kind of impact on the ground over the next couple of months. The other thing that we have been doing in the background as well is building a way for you to easily access all of this information. We appreciate there's a lot. If you're a donor, you have to take various steps. If you're a VCS organisation, there's other steps. We want to make sure that this information is in one place, it's easily accessible to you, and it's easy for you to engage with it. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see it's a picture of or a wireframe of a website page we are developing for Get Online London. So again, that will be the central repository of information on anything to do with Get Online London. So, and obviously you can follow us online in the usual LOTI and Good Things Foundation channels. But for now, I think I will stop sharing and hand over to you for any questions you may have. Again, please feel free to raise your hand or just speak up. My colleague Rob from Good Things, are there any outstanding questions or queries in the chat that we could perhaps start with?
I'm happy to give a summary, but I don't know if Stephanie wants to come in to start with.
Hi, thank you very much for this morning. I appreciate Teams has not been working to your favour. I just wanted to ask a quick question, and maybe this is directed at Natasha. I'm sorry, I'm coming from an organisation. My name is, I work for Community Tech Aid. We are an organisation providing digital skills as well as laptops, tablets and smartphones in Lambeth and Southwark. With the device bank, obviously I know you give it to Economy to kind of refurbish, and then the organisations can get it from there. If there is an issue with the device, if it breaks or if there's you know, some technical issue, where do you go? Where do the organisations go, or where do the individuals go?
Great question, Stephanie. So we've put a 1-year warranty on devices, so all organisations that take part will be able to. So if devices break or you know, they don't work on receiving that, or they have issues, they can get in touch with us and fill out an online form and that is beneficiaries but also organisations at the same time, and we will try our best to get a resolution to the issue. I think it's important we could probably share that form so people can look at what the parameters are of that, because obviously with broken things, you know, if someone drops it or water damage, I think we've got to look at what we can do with that. But there is support there for the first year with regards to that, and any feedback on that, once now we're in the distribution of devices, we can look at and review further down the line.
Yeah, if you could, I mean, that form would be great, because I'm very aware we do refurbishment on a very, obviously, like a smaller scale than you guys, but you know, you can literally fully check a laptop and then it goes out and then suddenly doesn't turn on. I mean, it's the nature of refurbished items. Obviously, it's a massively good impact for the environment, but I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah, and you know, we're still learning about that, Stephanie, and it's great we can have these show and tells and discussions, because you know, we've certainly got the ability to look into that, and you know, I can't make promises that we can be everything to everyone, but we can certainly look at taking in feedback and making improvements as and when we can.
Thank you.
I think I've got Liz. Is it Liz?
Yeah, hi, thanks. My name is Liz. I'm from Blackfriars Settlement in Southwark. I'm sorry, I was a bit late joining, but I wanted to check what happens with the data. So the issue we have is say older people who want to do some Zoom sessions, and it chews through data quite a lot. So is the data unlimited? We obviously don't want to get into a situation where people are running up big bills that they're unaware of. And what happens at the end of the year? Is data, does it carry on, or is that it? Do people just get 1 year? I'm sorry if you've already answered this and I missed it.
No, really valid questions there, Liz. So with the data bank, we're working with 3 telco providers offering slightly different offers, but generally it's a minimum of 20 gig a month access to connectivity with free calls and texts, up to a year's period. We've also got some work around researching what is the long-term solution for data poverty, because the data bank is one of many solutions, and one of the areas, for example, around social tariffs, there's a really low uptake in that, and there's still work to do in that particular area. So we've actually developed a guide. It's called it's around connectivity, and it's for organizations who aren't financial experts, but who support people who are coming in that are struggling to access data, and we can share that guide with you afterwards, which gives you a bit of a lowdown of all the different solutions and things that are going on, because there are some other locally based solutions to connectivity that are about now. So it's really about raising awareness of the different things that you can do, but the data bank is just one of those. And yeah, take your point, you know, what happens after the 12 months. There are some things that we are looking at, but I can't talk to you quite yet about at this moment in time, but I think that connectivity guide is a really good sort of start. And if you're working with organisations that are working with people that are really finding access to data challenging, then it's a good place to start, and we can share some information so that when we bring out more research, we can let you know about that. Thanks, Liz. Emily, is it Emily?
Good morning. Thank you so much for this great session. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yep, loud and clear.
Oh, great. Is there a directory so that we know all the organizations, the charities which have joined, so that you don't end up reinventing the wheel, so that we can support one another in terms of the services that we aim to provide, so that we can really, if there is issues with those that we engage with, who we are trying to encourage to be on board with the digital inclusion, if they've got a need and we can't always address it, there's another organization that maybe has already been delivering that, so that we can connect and learn from each other, rather than us trying to always come back to you guys or try and find answers to support those that we want to, you know, encourage to get on board with digital inclusion. I hope that's clear.
Do you want to take that again, sir?
No, I was just going to answer part of it. I think that's a really, really good question around that. So at LOTI, we've created a base camp, almost like a community of all the practitioners, whether they're from a VCS organization or a local authority, to join that and to have that precise conversation, because we absolutely, you know, want to avoid duplication of efforts. We want you to share the lessons you're learning as you're learning them. I think it's really, really important part of the process. So that's one way you can do that. I can share that link alongside the slides after this session, if that's of interest. But I think, I don't know, Gabby, if it's relevant to talk about the kind of the sessions you have that you mentioned with as part of, with organizations that are part of the Online Centres network.
Thanks, Genta. So do you mean the network meetups? Yeah, so once you join the network, you're kind of in a big club, and we are hoping to hold some London specific meetups, but there are also network wide meetups where you can come along and share best practice and learn from each other. So you'd be more than welcome at those.
Thanks, Gabby. There was a couple of things that came up in the conversation. I think Emily, who just spoke from Daughters United, I just wanted to flag, and I put it in the comments. It was a really interesting example where you might not be think of yourself as a digital inclusion organisation or specifically supporting digital skills. We welcome in any types of charities, community organisations who are supporting and people who need access to the service that we're providing. So you don't have to specifically support people with digital skills or access. I think the key thing is we'll underpin and support you to embed digital inclusion as part of your offer and what you do, and I think that's a really important point. And moving on to I think Theo was making the point about there's a real opportunity to design the offer to local needs and opportunities, and he gave an example of a doctor's surgery, and for example we would welcome doctor's surgeries into Get Online London, but we understand there's big pressures and challenges there. However, there is a role for organisations who might not be on the ground but could signpost and let organisations know that they think would really benefit from this, and that I'll include boroughs in this as well. And hopefully further down the line we'll have some good central points that Genta was talking about, so that you'll be able to direct people to. But at this stage we're just getting the word out and helping people to understand what it is that we're offering and how we are trying to underpin charities and organisations to help support people with digital inclusion. So I think those were the sort of couple of key points. I think Stephen mentioned no wrong door employment skills support. Yeah, really interested and happy to speak about that. And I think those were the sort of key points that came out of the text. I'm just having a quick look down. Enter, is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I was just going to add one more point, because I think what Emily's raised is a really good point around how we support community organisations so they can learn and share together. What I'd say is, if you have any specific ideas you want to discuss with us, we are open to that. So please do get in touch with us. I'll put my email in the chat as well if you'd like to talk about, because I think in LOTI we can work around that and think about that with you. So drop me an email if you have ideas.
Great stuff. I've just seen a message from Rick Cruss saying, can we have a second batch of smartphones if we're gifted a batch that we have now? So the way we work it, Rick, is we could ask everybody if they have a need for devices at this moment in time, but as we know, people's requirements change. So if you still have a requirement, there's still people that need them, please get in touch when more devices come. You won't be disregarded just because you've had a batch in the past. That's not how this is supposed to work. We want to get to a point where we've got a rolling regular stock of devices, and we're putting them out on a regular basis. So until we get there, of course the demand is always high, and we try to service as many people as we can, but we're not going to disregard you just because you've had them in the past.
Rob, do you mind if I just, it's Matthew Pike, I've just come in on a couple of things before we close? Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah, great.
I just wanted to pick up your point about GPs, etc. Just to note, we're as Health Place, we're working with senior leadership across the NHS for London right now. In fact, I've got a call just after this one with some clinical leaders. So that's about embedding, you know, all of this work into the NHS, yeah, and that also includes public health leads across councils as well. And we're doing a similar thing. We've just begun with DWP and Job Centre Plus, where again, of course, there are huge issues, poverty and other reasons around digital exclusion. So yeah, just to I don't know quite who's on this call because I can't see because I'm on my mobile. Yeah, but just to emphasise, this is all about, you know, extending the net here as widely as possible.
Thanks, Matthew. I'll hand back over to you, Genta.
Yeah, no, just to say thank you very much for all kind of your questions and your views. I think we really greatly appreciate it. Again, please do get in contact with me about anything that we've talked about today. You've got contacts from for colleagues from Good Things and Matthew as well, and Faye, if you'd like to get in touch with them. But just to say massive thank you to our presenters. Thanks, Rob, for managing the chat and the Q&A. And just to say thank you to all of you for being here, for sharing, for listening to us and for sharing your views. We really appreciate it. We will be in touch with the slides, the link to the video and Basecamp link as well. But just to say, yeah, another thank you very much. Have a great day. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.